If you have any questions, your English isn't great, we do have some technical experts in the room that can speak it. So, just getting started here. Anything that I talk about today, don't use this as a reasons for purchasing or investment. It's a safe harbor statement to say anything you see here, not promises of dates, but you know, all of this stuff is pretty open and out there, so not too many problems there. A little bit about myself. So I know Victor introduced me a little bit there, but my name's David Mason. I've been working in industry for a couple of decades, and I first discovered Shotgun, or flow production tracking, about 15 years ago when I was working as a VFX production manager on a film in London, where I converted all of my workflows from Excel to flow production tracking, or Shotgun at the time. It enabled me to get rid of 2 staff and accelerate our pipeline by 250%, and I've been in love with it ever since. I worked as a producer for about 6 or 7 years after that, and then Shotgrid and Autodesk asked me to work for them. So I came and worked for them maybe 9 years ago now. So I've come at this from both sides of the fence, working in film and post-production, and now on the software side and consulting and sort of getting people up to speed with getting in control with your flow production tracking setup. So the core concept of production tracking, I'm sure most of you guys out here have got some method of tracking all of your information, but there's a lot of digital files. There's media, there's emails, there's scripts, there's file paths, there's notes, there's PDFs, there's replies, there's annotations, there's so much stuff. And it just happens project to project, it keeps duplicating, things get out of control. The idea of flow production tracking is to centralize all of that information into a one source of truth. So connect everything to an up-to-date and most accurate live database that contains nearly all of your production data at the most accurate level possible. So I'm going to talk about a few of the features of flow production tracking and break it down into sort of 4 pillars or 4 main areas, starting with production management. So sort of the bread and butter of flow production tracking. This is a sort of look into a default page structure. But you can see here we've got a bunch of different modules, we've got a bunch of different entities, and essentially it's just a giant database of entities connected to each other through hierarchies. And all of those entities can have fields underneath them, and you can connect them all together. So you can see how we're looking at assets here. We can change the view of how we're looking at our assets. We can see them as thumbnails, scrubbable QuickTimes. We can rearrange all of these pages and save these page structures out for individual users, individual projects, individual departments, so you don't have to repeat any of these structures that you set up. You can see here that we've got pivot tables for tasks that are connected to those entities. And since these are just entities and they're connected to each other, we can look at things from different perspectives. So we're able to see things here currently from an asset perspective and see sort of tasks that are on top of it. We can adjust the statuses of those tasks, and we can see how they relate to each other. And then we can go a little bit deeper into our Gantt and see how those tasks are aligned with people. There's ways to automatically populate your timetables with things like task templates, so you can define structures of specific workflows, give it a start date, connect them together, and it'll populate your Gantt automatically. If you have these set up as task templates, you just need to enter one date, and as long as the dependencies are connected, it'll auto-populate your entire schedule, enabling sort of quick scheduling and arrangement. Being that these are just entities and they're connected to each other in different ways, we can also view them in different ways. So going from an asset view perspective, we can go to a human user perspective. So we can see what a person is assigned to, if they're over-assigned, if they're under-assigned, if there's too much data or too much work on their show. You can go through and check this out, and every individual can check this out themselves. All of these pages are customizable and savable. We do have project structures in place with defaults, but there's a lot of flexibility with how you can create it so that it works purely for people in your studio. Moving to creative collaboration, so one of the major strengths of flow production tracking is being able to connect your database and your work and your production data to your media, your communications, and your approvals. So being able to review is very important. I don't know if you guys know of RV, but RV is essentially a VLC player for film and television. It'll play anything you throw at it, and it's been connected with flow production tracking for years. So we have a player in RV. We have a live link, so you can do live reviews between different RV sessions. We've also open sourced RV, so that if you don't even use flow production tracking, you can just compile it yourself and use it for an engine. But there's a lot of review packages and building that we're doing currently around RV and online live review. We're currently streamlining our review process into a single package, which we've now called Review. We were calling it Creative Review for a while, but we've dropped the creative part. And essentially it's the combination of all of our tools we've been building for the last 15 years into one package. Currently there's about 7 or 8 ways to do a review session with inside flow production tracking, and depending on which context you're coming from and which area you're in, there can be differences of your options, differences of your abilities of being able to change things, what you can view, what you can compare, and we want to merge that all into one, which we've currently got out in beta, calling our review. So I can have a little look at that a bit later. But to get information into your flow production tracking site, being able to connect with your artists and your users is paramount. So having published tools based around Toolkit, which is a free package that we have that comes with flow production tracking, you're able to launch into your DCC applications such as Maya, Photoshop, Houdini, and have the same experience in each application where you have a loader, you have a publisher, you have a panel, you can publish these things to the pipeline. All of these are controllable and manageable from a centralized area, and all the artist needs to do is click a button, add a description, and hit the button again. So if they get a green tick, everything works. If they get a red X, it's the pipeline engineer has probably broken something. So really simplifies the workflow for artists, enables them to publish to the pipeline faster, more regularly, and accurate at the same time. Being able to review that information and get it sort of going back through the review pipeline, we're looking at Shotgun-Create. It's our old application, but it's really good for showing off what's possible. But we're looking at this as a reviewer, so we're able to use RV, which is embedded into this application underneath, and use all of the same tools we'd have in the web UI, but have this in a really simple sort of task-orientated viewport, go through the different versions of our list, make annotations, hit play, go back to our next playlist, or next version of the playlist. And that information goes straight to flow production tracking, and the artist doesn't even need to leave their DCC application. So they've got a little panel in their toolbar. Essentially it's just a mini little browser. They can see all of annotations, it gets updated, they can reply to their notes, they can drag and drop things, they can even do publishes through that little panel. So if your artists are saying they don't want to look at a database or a spreadsheet, then they don't have to. And being that we are sort of expanding our review capabilities and how we're able to connect with things, we've really focused on our cut support. So being able to import EDLs, either using an import process via a Flame or a Premiere or a Nuke Studio, or manually updating importing your EDLs through RV. You're able to store a lot of cut information with inside flow production tracking, and in the last 6 months we've started releasing some tools that connect to our application. So with inside Maya you're able to get review and context. So if you have the cut support set up in your flow production tracking site, and your flow production tracking site is connected with your Maya, then your artist can pull up the front and back shots on the shots that they're working with. So if they're doing animation, being able to do things in context, swap out the versions that you're viewing for those context views is really powerful. So we're finding that layout artists are really enjoying this, and as the tool sort of develops more and more, I think it's just going to be a default thing that you can see front and back without having to go to another piece of software to view it. And it's currently out now. There's a lot of expansion you can do with the workflows. Is this playing? Here we go. So one of the things you're able to do is, this is a details page. Every entity has a details page. These detail pages are structured, but this is an activity stream. It's kind of like a Facebook wall or meta wall or whatever they call it now. So anything that you publish on there, it's able to track in a streamlined manner. And you're also able to view all this information in a structured way of graphing. So anything that you can display as a grid, you can display as a graph. So being able to set up these complex, we call them canvas pages. We're essentially embedding multiple pages into one, and you have a bunch of different page types to be able to do so. A lot of people set up dashboards for departments or for admins or for higher up users, so they have a visual reference point to be able to understand what's going on in their production. Getting the information in and out of your production, very important. A lot of people still using Excel and CSV to do their bidding, to do their intercompany communications. So there's a really simple import-export workflow with CSVs and Excels. Automatically matches as you're importing, so you don't have to worry about misdented data or corrupted information. Really simple in and out workflows. And then being able to share this information with external parties. So one of the benefits of flow production tracking is being able to have client users. So client users are users that don't cost any money, but they have access to a single resource, the client review site, where you can create playlists to share with external parties. So they can add notes and they can add annotations to share with your team without you having to do any copying and pasting, without having to do a external review session. You automatically get all those notes for free. So very easy to set up. You create a playlist and you can share via a client review site. They get an email with the login information. You can security protect this, have it destroy itself within 7 days. There's a lot of different information, things that you can do there. They can have access to all of the tools like you'd have in the regular UI. They can do annotations, they can drag and drop QuickTimes. They can, I've got these images backwards, sorry, but you can invite multiple different users and groups, and we already saw what they're going to do there. It was on the last one. So you can see we've got our customizable tools at the bottom. So all of the little bits and pieces that enable them to access it without having them access the entire site. And it's for free. So good for producers that you don't want to see how things are going internally. And moving to tracking and reporting. So tracking and reporting, definitely a key feature of flow production tracking. The fact that all of your data is live and up to date and all of your visual information is able to be drilled down into, this makes these graphs very simple to sort of extrapolate data from. So just clicking on any of the parts of the graph will bring up a modal window that sort of shows you what makes up that part of the graph, so that you can have a very quick way to troubleshoot and solve issues that you have on, say, a referential database. There's the ability to import and export all this information as data and graphs. If you, say, had external parties that you wanted to share this with, but you didn't want to share the site, very easy to get this data in and out and connect it to bits and pieces. You're able to customize and update a lot of the fields inside your ShotGrid site. So there's many different levels of permission inside a flow production site where you can customize who can see it, what person can see it, why they can see it, if they're allowed to edit it, what they can edit it to. There's a lot of control as to access control. And there's a lot of new fields. So we've got a calculated field which we've been working on for a while, which is getting more and more features as we go along. Not as feature rich as, say, Excel. We're not going to be doing any VLOOKUP tables or anything like that, but for simple calculations, concatenations, conversions, you don't have to leave flow production tracking to do this workflow. You can just set up calculated fields to do this for you. We should not be looking at this one, but we'll have a look at it anyway, because it's quite an old dashboard. You can see the UI is about 6 years old here. But there's a customizable dashboard, and I think I turned this on by accident. We're going to go through the same things, but much easier to see it in this view. So part of being able to see what's going on in your studio is being able to assign the work at your studio effectively. So we've been working on a application for about 7 years now. Well, we purchased it about 6 years ago, but it's called Concilium, but now we call it our resource planning application and generative scheduling. Essentially a way to have a simple viewport that's a little bit easier to gather more data than, say, in your Gantt, and being able to see the information that you're sharing with. So changing this structure can be very difficult. Updating this can be very painful, and getting it to work effectively on a timely manner is really painful. What if we had a solution where AI solved this for us? A lot of AI that's coming out is generative. It's creating stuff. It's building things. We want it to do boring shit. I don't want to do adjusting schedules. I want to deliver a schedule and get to work. So in our generative scheduling, we have a schedule, and there's tasks in the schedule. This is a task that we've imported from our flow production tracking site. Very familiar to what you could see in flow production tracking. There's dependencies. And you can see where they land inside flow production tracking. But you can see there's a lot of peaks and valleys in the different views and the different people that are required to do the different tasks. So it does look a lot complicated. This is quite an involved project that we're demoing here, but with more data, the more colors and the more pretty it looks, and it's a lot easier to see sort of the end result of where we go. But as we sort of go through the schedule, we're able to set things, variables like start no earlier than, start no later than, essentially define a bunch of constraints to our schedules. Say we need to deliver a specific shot by a specific date. This has been moved forward in the schedule. This person has been fired. We have hired 2 more animators, that sort of thing. So you're able to give it these variables, and you're able to create non-destructive versions of possible schedules. So it'll rearrange your timeline and give you some options to see what would work best. So you can see we've got a baseline and an initial pass, and the initial pass is essentially filling out the timetable to populate your data as effectively as possible. Now, this might not be the perfect solution, but you can drill down on these a lot faster. For example, sorry, usually I have my notes on the same computer. I'm struggling with the multi-damming. But if we want the compositing department to start a little bit later, we can set a constraint to ramp up our compositors. We're not on the same frame. Sorry, the next one. There it is. I must have double-clicked. Apologies. Okay, so here we go. So now we're looking at the overall project, and the overall project has a bunch of sequences that we need to finish this project by a particular date. So we're adding a constraint to finish before August the 31st, or August the 1st, and we can give this sequence a high priority as well. So finish no later than, click. I need to speed this video up so it's a little bit slow. And there we go. So, and then we have these sequences, and then we've got a high priority, the resource of 100, so set a priority value. So we can define what things have a higher inherent timeline. So it can automatically adjust these to fit these into other bits and pieces. So we can load these priorities and take it into account our general schedule, and then we're going to run an initial pass just towards the end here. There we go. So we end up with this schedule. So from a scattered, very unstructured, laid out schedule that a lot of companies will do, you probably won't get as clean information as this, and this is with a lot of data. So this is lots of shots, lots of tasks, and the more that you get, the sort of more involved and more interesting it becomes. And one of the best parts of flow production tracking, I believe, is automation. So it's all well and good to be able to update this schedule, to put a bunch of information into a database, but when you have to keep that database up to date, when you have to go into pages and make changes, this is when it starts to fall apart. This is when people stop using the product. This is when you get annoyed rather than enjoying what you're doing. So creating a bunch of customizations and automations has always been at the core of ShotGrid and flow production tracking. We've had a very extensive Python API for many years, very simple CRUD workflow. I've been working with it for a long time, not as a coder, and I'm pretty good with it. I think I've taught maybe 100, 150 people over the last 7 or 8 years how to use it that weren't coders. Very, very easy to get up and running, and if that's not your flavor, REST API is available for all of your other languages. But where you can implement a lot of this customization is important. So being able to add scripts into your web UI. So your artists, your producers, your coordinators have access to additional tools. Obviously, these tools would probably be created by yourself at your studio, but simple things like creating deliverables, moving things on disk, gathering a worksheet, creating a PDF for a turnover report. I was the liaison for DNEG for years, helping them set up a lot of their action menu items. They had about 10 or 15 parent menus that all had sub-menus underneath, hundreds and hundreds of action menus. None of their coordinators needed to know any technical stuff, they just needed to know their job, and there was a button to do so. So being able to do so with a payload really sort of speeds up the workflows that you can enable with inside your web UI. And with flow production tracking and Toolkit being consistent throughout different applications, excuse my old logos here, but these are the vanilla applications we ship out of the box. So we have engines for all of these applications. 3ds Max, Maya, Flame, Nuke, Unreal. Houdini. The Unreal and Unity engines are managed by those teams themselves, but they keep them nice and up to date. So if you're doing any game engine stuff, if you're doing any virtual production, there is a publish and review engine for that as well. And artists will have a consistent UI through each application. So we can see the loader, the publisher, and the panel. Those are all default applications within inside each DCC. But there's also additional applications depending on the software that you're using. So Nuke has a write node, for example. Flame has an export sequence, for example. So there's additional tools depending on the application you're using. But it's also a very open platform, so you can build your own tools on top of it. We have a lot of hooks throughout our publishing processes for Toolkit. So if you wanted to add in sanity checks for checking any data of the things that are being processed or published or exported that's not part of a regular published pipeline, you can add in hooks to catch all of these bits and pieces as you go along. Very customizable, very easy to use. Lots of great documentation to be able to utilize. And I did have one little video. I turned it off though. Let's turn it back on. Unhide slide. There we go. So this is just looking at how it launches into Unreal. So very much the same. I think it's Unreal 4 point something here, but it's up to date with the latest Unreal. And you're able to use the loader as you would with any other application or any other Toolkit application. And I did actually copy the wrong version. So we're going to go live. Can you guys turn the video over, please? Huh? So part of our new name change is that we are, oh, there's an update. We are releasing an application called Flow Studio. So we've got Flow Capture, Flow Studio, Flow Production Tracking. We're using Flow essentially as a name card for powered by. It's a database that we've got in the back end, and it will be connecting all of our applications together. So this is Flow Studio. It's a way to track and ingest cameras to get scenes, to get tracking, to get roto, to get replacements. There's a lot of different options you can do to export this straight to different applications, but essentially the idea is that you can film any content you like and then export this content through the software and create a timeline where you drag and drop in characters, get automatic clean plates, get automatic ID. We can probably see the source here. Sorry, I'm just going to go to my actual files here. And we can see this one here. That I did this last week when we were in Manchester, just previous to a demo, and it takes about 20 minutes to render a shot. Doesn't matter how long it is, and you can drag and drop all this information. You can export the clean plates, you can export the camera track, you can export the rig. You can export this straight to a Unreal scene, you can export it to a Maya scene, as a Maya, as a USD, and have all this be editable and adjustable. So you get the track, you get the clean plate, you get everything. Obviously it's not great when you're moving the camera. You can see it's kind of fallen off a little bit there. And if you're doing any sort of cleanup and other bits and pieces, you're able to see occlusion or contact shadows, that sort of thing. So, you know, obviously not ready for final picture, but really good for layout, really good for setup, really good for version 1s, really good if you've got a bunch of data or a bunch of media that you need to show a director something quickly, just so that they get an idea of what's going on. I'm not as good at 3D, so I haven't tested the full capabilities of this yet, but there's a way to, if you're doing multiple cameras, so you've got a witness cameras in a scene, you can set up a shot. I wonder if they've got a demo of it here actually. This one? I'd have to use it in a project, but I've got a bunch of other ones. But the idea is that you can export the entire scene and track the geometry and have it go into a scene automatically and not have to worry about where everything's going. Let's have a quick look at this one. Yeah, loading's doing pretty bad. But as long as the characters match the size, super quick, super valuable way to get it into flow production tracking. But I just wanted to show you how that works so that I can show you how the review process inside the web UI is working. We've also been updating our login workflows. You no longer have to log in multiple locations. It's all centralized, so if you're using Toolkit, if you're using flow production tracking, using RV, it's all using the same session tokens. So no more logging in and importing. Ignore the super admin. I'm just a special person. But we're going to have a look at the creative review player and how we can utilize the review workflow. So let's have a quick look at my projects. You can do everything in dark mode as well if you're not a big fan of light mode. I hate having a big bright image at the start of my session. So if we have a look at our playlists, oopsie, you can see that I've imported a few versions of a playlist of some stuff we did a bit earlier in the year. I think JP is in this one. But one of the benefits that we can do with playlists is that we can launch straight into our creative review application. So we can go into Plan or Creative Review. We've got a new startup guide that's come out in the last week, but I know what I'm doing, so let's just close out of that. And you can see here I've got the clip in timeline here, this handsome guy in the snow. We've got access to all of our notes and activity stream. We can swap over to media information that's controllable. We can adjust that inside the UI. And we can also have a live review session. So I can set up a session, give somebody the code, they join the session, and then I think we've tested up to 50. I don't know if we've tested above, but it doesn't break yet. We haven't tested more than 50. But a single presenter, they're able to swap that presenting role. All the annotations and notes that are taken during the session still get saved against that version, able to review it. There's a lot of comparison tools that you're able to do. So we can go up to compare and contrast. And we can see that we've got a bunch of different options, side by side, overlays with opacity. We've got a different wiping, which you can do whilst playing. And then there's a difference one. That one. There we go. Pretty nice. But then we can do some annotations while we're looking at both of them, and then step through these annotations and make it. This is an amazing animation that I'm showing here. But now we've got a little couple of frames that we can see going across, and we can turn on ghosting. So we can, step through. If you've got animations that you want to be showing translation, if you're doing bouncing balls or that sort of thing, we've got ghosting and stepping, really helpful, and then able to put them into an entire playlist. So we can close that out. And this is based off my phone's internet, so apologies for the slow loading. But being able to drag and drop and replace these bits and pieces in between and view them as different cuts. So if we compare, we go to a different shot. What's this one here? And compare. I thought I had a different clean plate, but we're comparing essentially the same stuff. But and then you can annotate on these things, save out the sessions, put the notes in. Test note. Attach bits and pieces if I'd like to. If my computer was working fast enough. Added clean clip. Hit send, and these things go automatically back into the timeline. There we go, updating media. Apologies for the slow internet. But really bringing all of this workflow and timeline and information into a single session, being able to jump into other media like related notes and related streams. So going and drilling down. And be able to see notes on different applications, different bits and pieces. And then there's a whole bunch of shortcuts. So being able to speed this up really quickly and effectively, I think it's that one. There we go. So using it like a non-linear editor. One of the benefits of our overlay player was how quickly and effectively you could get through a playlist while you're talking with somebody. Once you get good at this, you can move through this very quickly. There's a couple more annotations, or a couple more keyboard shortcuts that we're putting in place. I think in and out is still a shortcut key to get there. But being able to jump between shots, being able to do things quickly, move up and down, it's super, super useful. There's a couple of ways to get into flow production tracking review. So obviously right-clicking on a playlist or right-clicking on a version. And there's also a bunch of controls for being able to control the structure of the application. Waiting on the internet. So if we go into a creative review beta, so if it wasn't turned on, you can go to the site settings and turn it on in the background. But there's some configurations that you can do, who can use it, who has access to it, how you organize statuses, what's categorized, what's shown, what's not, and then structuring what fields you can display in the UI. So there's a whole bunch of customizations you can do for this, for the web player, and there's a whole lot of control you can do for the site itself. And the last bit was turning it on. So if we go to our site preferences, flow production tracking review, enable creative review. Save changes, go back to your project, and you're all good. So if we view it from the versions page, and being that these are just entities, you can structure your version page to have any sort of view style that you'd like. So you're able to launch into creative review from here as well. But say we wanted to structure this just for things that were already approved or required to review. You can structure your pages so that you've got preset page structures, so you don't have to design these multiple times. So I'm going to design a page tab, nice and quickly here, say approved. 2D versions, grid view, create view, and then just set my filter so that it's approved. Save this page. And we've got our one approved shot here, which is on 2 different tabs. So being able to sort through a default and go to an approved, really good workflow for producers, coordinators, and anyone who's got a lot of information to track. And we'll jump quick back to here to put that up. And yeah, that's it. So if you guys have got any questions about flow production tracking, I'm happy to answer any and all queries. We've also got Juan Maria here, who's worked with a lot of flow production tracking things. So if I have any Spanish questions, I'll be directing them towards Juan Maria. Thanks, everybody.